Yeah, I mean, I think that with AI in particular, we're so drawn to authentic stories and we want all the real people details. We want the mistakes. We want the sentences that aren't curated. So we're just so drawn right now to what is real and what feels like the opposite of AI slop.
Welcome to the Social Dialogue Podcast. We're a mother-daughter team, both working in the world of social media management.
Join us as we share our different perspectives on life today, including trends, fashion, friendships, and career, and how social media impacts it all. Together, we bring two perspectives to one conversation.
I'm Shane.
And I'm Jenna.
And we're excited to bring you this new episode of the Social Dialogue Podcast. So Jenna's still on her break, but in the meantime, I keep meeting people and I'm like, oh, you'd be such a great conversation on our podcast. Will you come on with me? So I recently met Alex Frost. She's out of Cincinnati and she's a brand strategist. And we had so much to talk about and she's fascinating. I was introduced to her by Kim Rocky. So if you're in Louisville and you do PR or you need PR, you might know Kim Rocky. She and Deborah Locker-Griffin and I, we all partnered together on a client, and Kim and I have known each other forever. But she introduced me to Alex. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then I'll bring her in. Alex Frost is a Cincinnati-based journalist, brand strategist, and founder of the editorial marketing agency Frost Freelance, where she has spent more than 20 years helping brands and leaders find their voice. Her byline has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, Forbes, and Huffington Post, and she has shaped content for brands ranging from Johnson & Johnson to Sam's Club. Alex acts as a kind of outsourced brain for C-suite leaders and growing companies, turning their expertise into thought leadership and strategy that actually connects. She is known for a no-nonsense approach and a belief that the right story, told well, is still a brand's most powerful asset. So I'm excited to welcome her in. Grab a coffee. You can join us as we have this conversation, and I think you're really going to like it. Welcome, Alex, to the Social Dialogue Podcast. I'm excited to have you. I'm excited that we were introduced and got to meet. It's nice to know that you're just over the river.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Great. So, I like to say that I'm an outsourced voice for the brands that I work with. And I feel like you are really more the outsourced brain for brands that you work with. So tell us a little bit in your own words, kind of who you are and what you do and how you help companies, but also business leaders.
Yeah, I have been a journalist for about 20 years. So I spent a lot of time interviewing businesses and seeing what was working and not working with how they were presenting to the world. So that led me down a little pathway to start working with them on brand and content strategy, the businesses themselves. So my business is now split into two, the journalism world and the brand and content strategy for businesses. And it's a lot of fun to see and help businesses where they didn't know they need help. So they'll come to me and say, I need PR, I need social media, I need a blog. And what they find out super quickly is that they just need a plan. And those things are the actual execution or the final endpoint, but they don't actually know what they need or have any messaging work done or any brand strategy work done to where they can be sure that that's what they finally need in the end. So my job is to help them back up and identify where the root of the problem is. So some of them might say, we have tons of blogs, but they're not landing, or we're not getting enough social media interaction. We're not sure why we're not in the right conversations. So identifying where that pain point is and then helping them create short-term, but also long-term plans around brand and content strategy is how I help. A lot of them are also wanting to be thought leaders. They really want to be seen as the industry main voice in the industry or one of the top voices. So along the way, I help them to build a thought leadership program where usually people are underutilizing LinkedIn, but also other platforms. And then sometimes that moves into some media consulting if they do end up needing PR or other things. I have a partner for that. So that's pretty much how I help them. A lot of them have these really amazing untold stories within their brand, whether it's their founder story or client stories that are just really underutilized, and help them pull those up and out of their brand and help them use it to convert more customers.
That's really interesting. I find that whole piece about backing up, I get to that conversation as well. I'll get a phone call from someone who's saying, we own a restaurant. We're not getting great, foot traffic. And a friend of mine mentioned I should call you for social media help. And my first response to that is back up about 10 steps. Let's figure out, before you just start posting on social, let's figure out, who are you? What is your brand? What is it you want to say? What is that messaging? I find that us as the social media vendor, we love to partner with other vendors, whether it's paid social or PR, web development. But really what always needs to come first is the piece that you do. Because if you
Mhm.
don't have an overall strategy and you don't really understand what your voice should be, what you're doing well, what you're doing not so well, then we don't have a roadmap to
Right.
follow. And
Right.
so, it's good to know that there are people out there that we can say, hold on, you don't need us yet. Let
Yeah.
me give you Alex's phone number first.
Right. Right. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that.
And
And it's fun because I end up being able to build this network of people that I can refer to as well, like you, where it's, once we do have our act together, now we do need to go back to the thing that they were asking for. So that we do get to that step. It's not living in the strategy world forever alone, but then they feel much more confident that they can hand off these messaging documents, brand guidelines, content pillars and say, we really know where we're headed. Can you help us get there?
right, right. And I feel like sometimes, that it even needs to be revisited maybe throughout the year, certain times of the year, you go through a few months and then you're like, let's revisit that strategy. Are we following it or are we disconnected? Because I find that happens a lot where, let's say the year starts in January and we've got this great plan. And by April, 15 new things have popped up. Maybe they launched a new product or maybe they're like, we need to talk about this because our competitors talking about that. Kind of always needs to go back to that strategy. Does this fit in?
Right.
We've had a client, or this has happened a few times actually, where a client's like, but I really want to become a national speaker. So I really want my LinkedIn presence up. And I'll say, well, I understand that, but let's get some content built before we're just talking how you're available to be hired.
Exactly. That is
Yeah,
one of the main things I see as a mistake on LinkedIn from people who want to be thought leaders is instead of adding value to the industry conversation, they are kind of promoting what's going on in their own business every time, or this is an event I went to, it was fun, versus what was the conversation you had at the event where you can let people be a fly on the wall to that really important conversation. And that's how you're, showing us you're actually an industry leader and not just using it kind of as a announcement board for the business.
right. Absolutely. So what other kind of common disconnects do you see between sort of the brand, the something that you create for the brand, and then how it actually gets distributed on social? I find that sometimes if it's not clearly defined, then we're every which way. And the client's like, hold on a second. Or the brand strategist comes back and is like, what are you even talking about?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how do you kind of prevent that and make sure that the other vendors can read it clearly and, can implement?
Yeah. Well, on the brand guidelines that I create with people, which is this really cohesive, really big document that ends up being sort of the hub of all their strategy, there is a section where we get really into the content pillars. And I think a mistake with content pillars is people don't leave room for, I usually call it news and trends. So we have a pillar just called news and trends. And it's basically stuff that comes up that you want to comment on that doesn't have to derail the rest of your planned strategy. It's a part of the strategy. So I think sometimes people are hesitant to make a scheduled out strategy when they're like, but what if this happens on a Tuesday and I just want to talk about it? I'm like, that's absolutely built in. And something you should be doing is responding to timely events in your industry, and sharing your thoughts about them. So I'd say that's one problem is when the content pillars don't include space for that. And it should never restrict people's, in the moment feelings about what they want to share online. It should basically encompass that and acknowledge that that's a really important part is people are going to look to you when news is breaking within your industry. What are you going to say? Do we have a plan for how quickly you're going to respond and on what platforms, and that it fits into there instead of being this like extra add on or just, the founder like talking off the cuff randomly. The other thing is, like you were just saying, the backwards looks at the content strategy is almost more important than the forward plan. So once we can look backwards, we're like big into color coding. So our content pillars are all color coded. And if we can see in the last month, the social calendar was full of like green, and that was one content pillar, like just say the news and trends, because we were just talking about it, then we can quickly see, okay, we never hit the blue category. Next month, we really need to balance that out. So the backward looks at strategy, I think, are even more important than what we think we're going to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been doing this for more than 20 years, and it seems like the storytelling piece of this is really what's at the backbone, and we always kind of tell people, we need that storytelling piece because it's not just you're selling this product, it's your why. Where did it come from? Who is your founder? How do you sort of tell small business owners to write their story? Where's a good starting place?
I tell them to go to YouTube and look up the hero's journey. And the hero's journey, there's multiple videos about it, but there's one in particular. It's animated. I can send it to you later. And it shows the hero's journey in a way that people really understand. So the hero's journey is just a classical structure for a story that is captivating, and it shows different points in the story, such as a call to action, which is the moment you knew you wanted to do something more or wanting to do something about a problem. And then it shows different obstacles that people go through. There's a step I really like that's about gathering help along the way. So who was around you? Some people kind of forget that when they're telling their founder story of who came around you or that you recruited to kind of help elevate your mission or your business. And it goes on and on. There's like, I don't know, 9 or something main points. But when I'm working with someone on building a founder story, we use that as the framework. And at each of those moments, I tell people to pull out an anecdote that specifically demonstrates it. So from the journalism world, like show, not tell is really important. So in that moment of feeling called, like where were you literally standing when you were called to make that business? Or what's a conversation you had or something that happened to you. So once people can build this list of anecdotes that they have that's structured within the hero's journey, they have built their founder story. And when they tell it like that, from a PR perspective, more media wants to write about it because the pitches are better. And then from just like their own website and other places they're telling their founder story, it's just more captivating to read and people can find them way more relatable and understandable instead of some like, AI generated like generic founder story on their about page that doesn't really seem like it connects to people.
I would love to have the link of that hero's video. We can put it in the show notes.
Great.
That would be great. Who was around you when you decided to launch your business?
Who was around me? Let's see. I started when I was 18 as a journalist, and I was in high school, and we had a local newspaper like partnership program where you could get published as a student. So I did my first reporting as a student, made $15 covering our local like American Idol competition. But I really have to credit my high school journalism teacher, But from there, when I truly established more of the brand building and content strategy business, it was around 2020 or 2021. And I was seeing companies really flounder with COVID and understand COVID made them see that they didn't have the framework ready to then reposition all their content based on what was happening around them. So they were going, oh, shoot, we need to take everything down off our website and reposition it for unprecedented times. But they didn't have the original messaging there to know how to even keep the foundations of their business and their messaging. And then on top of it, add this layer for COVID. So it was just such an odd time where everyone needed help. They weren't sure what to do and how to adjust from there. And a lot of people that I worked with had to kind of throw everything out and restart and say, okay, since we weren't really ready for this, who are we now? Who do we want to be in like a post-COVID era? Especially because I work with a lot of health clients. So there was really that impact in health tech. So they basically had to start from scratch and do true brand building and content strategy that was really careful and meaningful around COVID because it was just such a difficult time. So that's how I got started because so many brands needed that at that time. What was your question? Sorry, I think
The people around you when you were launching.
The people around me. Yeah, I started to build my team with a long time ago. I taught journalism, and I had a former student who was still really interested in the journalism world. So she was my first kind of business manager or admin type person. So she was integral and really helped me out. And from there, I grew a small team of people and then started to launch my idea of like a talent bench. So I never really identified as an agency, but more of a consultancy where I bring in, these people from this talent bench as needed. And it's just been really fun to network and find people to add to the talent bench because everyone knows 3 more people they're obsessed with. And so I've loved creating the entire talent bench through word of mouth without any like going out and cold recruiting. So I think that's been really amazing to see happen and something that was unexpected. And now I feel like I think there's about 10 people at this point where I'm like, okay, if a client needs someone, I feel really good about going to this person and don't have to be like, how's their work going to be? Are they going to treat this client well? So that's been cool, especially as a remote worker, because it's super isolating to always be on your own and you don't know how networking will really go, but it's gone really well.
That's great. Yeah, I feel that I'm the same way. If a client needs something, I know somebody.
Yeah.
I've been building my bench as well. And I love how you say everybody has 3 people they're obsessed with.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I am, when I meet someone and they're like, oh, do you know anyone who blah, blah. I'm like, yes, I should tell you about this person. I'm obsessed with them.
Right.
And sometimes
there are 3 people we're obsessed with the list.
Be like
but
a big,
it wouldn't work that way.
That would be a great conference. Like all the people I'm obsessed with in one room. That would be really cool.
Should launch that conference.
That would be really fun. Yeah, that would be great. And it's funny.
We'll call it 3 people you're obsessed with.
Some of the people that I'm obsessed with have nothing to do with my business, but I find that all day I'm like sending them, like, did you see this TikTok video? And I'm sending it to them because I'm just obsessed with what they do. And
they become kind of your work community. So
absolutely.
No more water cooler talk. It's just sending TikToks on text.
Yeah. So you mentioned how COVID kind of shifted the work. And I feel like even before that, over time that you've been doing this, what else have you seen how storytelling has changed? I mean, certainly with the implementation of social media, that's changed things. But, kind of how do you envision, or how do you see how social media has changed, or how do you see how it's going to change the art of storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, I think that with AI in particular, we're so drawn to authentic stories, and we want all the real people details. We want the mistakes. We want the sentences that aren't curated. So we're just so drawn right now to what is real and what feels like the opposite of AI slop. So it's really an amazing opportunity right now in storytelling to dig into those stories, whether it's the founder story or other ones, and pull them out and elevate them and repurpose them across platforms. Because I think it's just, we'll like make a founder story and then it kind of sits there and it's this really underutilized piece of work. Because like I said, if you really do put all that work into the founder story, you now have something like 9 little stories to tell within it. Each of it is a social post, at least one. But most people don't take it to that next step and use all that work they've done to put it in other places. So I think the storytelling, the change right now is just that we are drawn to the imperfections and the heart behind storytelling and not so much the curated story. I think 10 years ago, that was much different. Like people wanted curated stories. They wanted a happy ending with a pretty bow on top. And we were very into like how everything looked perfect on Instagram. And now we're accidentally scanning for what's real amidst all the, curated stuff or amidst all the slop. So it's kind of a strange but exciting time to be a storyteller.
Yeah. Are you using AI for your business, and how do you use it?
Yeah. I do use AI for my business. I use it in lots of different ways. One of my favorite ways right now is to take a call where someone says they need something, so maybe an initial discovery call, and use it to help form a personalized proposal. Because I've noticed I really verbally make a proposal to someone when I'm first talking to them in a discovery call, but then I used to have to sit down and take hours to write everything I just said into the proposal. But now if I record the call and am able to in a few seconds, turn it into a proposal and edit it, that's like a massive time save for my business. And I'm surprised how well, if I capture what I want to do in the call really well, I'm surprised how well it ends up translating to a proposal. But then, I mean, obviously nothing is without work. So I have to make sure I'm being really intentional in the call to verbalize, here is exactly what I would do for you. Here are the options. Here's why. And if I do that work on the, verbal side in the call, then the proposal is really easy. So I love that step in the business. I've had compliments around my proposals feeling very personal, and it's because it's really just my voice in the call, reconfigured and edited. So that's one way. With storytelling, I use it a lot for finding gaps in stories or for translating the story for multiple audiences. So if a client has 3 target audience groups and I want to tell the same story to all 3 groups, then I might ask it to tell me a place where if I change the audience to audience number 2, what will they see as a gap in the story that will lead to a decreased chance of them converting as a client? So I can try on different target audiences to find out how to tweak the story. And then I can go ahead and tweak it because I still continue to feel like the writing is not close to being there. I really don't use it for true writing, like, hey, write this blog or something like that. It's just the actual amount of work it would change to make it how I would do it is still pretty substantial to where it feels interruptive to my process instead of helpful. So it's more like, what are 3 alternative titles? How do we change it for the target audience? One thing I do like is overlaying a brand guideline or a messaging document onto an existing set of content they have and having it identify places that it aligns really well and does not align really well. So that can be helpful once you do have the messaging work done to processing large volumes of content. So if you have like 100 blogs and you do this new messaging work and you can apply it and say, point out the, most problematic areas that don't apply to the messaging. And then from there, we can decide how to fix it.
Very cool. I'm using it very similarly as well. So let me ask you this. So normally I have my daughter on who is Gen Z. She's usually my co-host, but she's taking a little break while she gets settled in her new life. My question is, how do you see Gen Z coming into what we do, and how do you think how do you think they'll make an impact?
In what way? Like coming into content strategy?
Yeah, coming into the industry, like my daughter is working in content creation. So she works for a company. She's doing graphic design, content creation, specifically for a conference. That's where she's working. But she is trained in social media implementation and she's done some strategy work. So I'm just curious for people of her generation, either still in college or graduating college and looking for their first career move. How do you see them making a difference or making an impact, or what advice would you have for them?
In my world, there is a huge opportunity for, it's not really internships, it's more these like paid part-time jobs. I mean, last month I placed like maybe 4 to 5 people in these positions where it's like, my clients need help with X. We have this 20 something over here that needs experience in marketing, has some natural social media abilities, and they are able to basically learn from the inside out, sort of like an internship. But I just hate to use the word internship because people have like seriously exploited, free labor in that world. And this is more like some of these positions are kind of well paid and lead to other jobs. And some of the people I know have cobbled them together enough to basically make a well-paid job with multiple clients. So that's been happening in my industry, is like clients have that need. They really want young people who they know have been, social media natives their entire life, basically, to come in and do that. So I think using that role that they have where they are naturally excellent at Instagram, that because they've just grown up using it, it wasn't a learned skill like for us old people, So, using that, but also helping them learn the strategy part and not skipping that part, I think is huge, because I don't see a lot of 20 somethings coming in fully trained on brand or content strategy, even if they're coming out of marketing school, which is interesting to see. I'm not super sure what's happening there, but I think it's just, there's a big focus on AI. And so they come out knowing a lot about AI, but not so much the full strategy aspects behind it that they might need to deal with. So I'm curious to see how that shakes out. But yeah, I think they have a lot of things to give the industry, and there's some interesting paid ways to learn from the inside out. But that's what I would recommend, is them finding someone, like me or like you to work with, even if it's part-time, where they can see like the inner guts of the business and how things are happening instead of trying to learn it from the outside.
Yeah. And I think the other benefit of that is they may come into a career sitting at this one desk with this one task. They may find something else if they're open to it and open to learning and learning from different people in whatever company they're in. They may find a totally different career path to take. And
like that guy you just introduced me to, the researcher, he was telling me about someone else whose entire job is to analyze board of directors and improve the board of directors role, or to recruit, proper boards for companies. I think that's like such a fascinating role that I bet nobody knows exists as its own job.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some exciting things they could, learn about if they're in these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of what happened to me. I started off as a PR person, got an internship one summer, found out what else this company did, and it led me down a career path of working as a meeting planner for 10 years. And then sort of one thing led to another, and several iterations. Here I am since 2008 running a social media agency. So, I think it's important for them to be open and curious. To stay curious.
Yeah. And also like the job pathways that seem the most prestigious are not always where the most learning happens, I would say. Because I have I had a big medical problem when I was coming out of college and had to cancel my big like New York City journalism type, internship slash would have been a job to basically stay home and recover from this serious health condition. And it ended up putting me in a whole different path with like really meaningful, I guess I would say apprenticeship type roles that I wouldn't have had in such a big environment that's just kind of meant to shuffle interns in and out. So that's why I use those words like internships pretty carefully, because it's like you can get an internship, but are you boots on the ground, able to learn all the different things? Or are you being held at arm's length doing, obviously not the coffee runs, hopefully, but the equivalent to the coffee runs or something,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We have one of my daughter's friends is living with us this summer. She just finished her first year of law school and was looking for a clerkship. And I think she thought she'd end up at a great big firm and she'd be getting someone coffee. She got a job at the U.S. Attorney's Office here in Louisville, and she is doing real stuff, and it's going to look great on her resume. So
yeah,
you just never know.
That's great.
Yeah.
I just hope that they don't waste their time on places where they don't feel like they're truly learning, because there's plenty of places that need to throw them in and have them like learn the real stuff. So yeah, that's what I would hope for them.
That's great.
Yeah.
So Alex, for companies who need help with strategy, or companies like mine who get a call and they're like, I need a Facebook page. And I'm like, hold on a second. What is the best way for people to reach out to you and contact you and schedule a call?
My website is alexandra-frost.com. So they can go there and they can look around at, the different services I provide. But to your point, a lot of what I do is when someone thinks they might need that type of help, I basically do a discovery call with them and help them decide, am I the right person for them? Or do they need someone, from that talent bench to work with as their main person? Or do they need a referral somewhere? So typically, if anyone's throwing around the words thought leadership, PR, content, sometimes even that they're just thinking they need to scale up their business, or their business is at this change point. I don't know. They've called it many different things, but like this moment of inflection where they're like, okay, we're going to scale, we're going to change focus. That's usually when people reach out and they're like, what do I do with this whole messaging thing? What do I do about all this content that's on my site that doesn't feel right? So those are all reasons people reach out, and then I help them kind of figure out, do they need a custom proposal, or do we end up in some sort of retainer situation where I'm helping them long term? Because for some people, I serve as like a fractional CMO for them when they don't have a true marketing team, which a lot of people don't have a marketing team of any type. They're just kind of scraping things together. So I would say also to those people, it's easier to start that earlier than later, than when you're feeling like, you're way down the road and wish there was a marketing team already set up. It's better to just start with something and start with one person and then grow from there. So that's my recommendation.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Alex, for joining me today. I'm so glad we got introduced. Shout out to Kim Rocky for the introduction.
Yeah.
And I hope that we get to work together in the near future. I know a lot of people who call me can really use your services before me.
You too.
So
you too. Yeah, sometimes it's at the same time, right? Like they need literally on Tuesday for their socials to keep going out while they're doing the messaging work.
Right.
And that's something I tell people who are busy and stressed about this. They're like, I don't have time to stop and do this strategy work. I'm like, no, we're going to keep the ship afloat while we do this. It's two things going on at once. I'm always in my camera doing this.
Right.
It's both, So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. This is great. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too.